River Place Capital. It is Thursday, February the 18th, and wanted to just talk about what we saw in the markets last week, what we see in markets moving forward, and what's kind of happening and causing some of the market pressures that we're seeing today in the market being down a little bit today. What's causing that selling pressure and where we see things moving forward. So, the markets last week had a really strong week. The S&P 500 had a week up over 1%, about 1.3%, but the small caps had an amazing week and had a week where they were up 4%. So to put that into perspective, your average rate of return in the stock market over the course of its history is around 8 to 9%. So you just saw half of a year's return in 1 week in the small cap indices. And year to date, markets are off to a really great start, but the small and mid cap indexes are off to amazingly great starts, with the S&P 500 being up as of last Friday around 4.8%, but you have the mid cap index up over 10%, and even more and up more than that is the small cap index, and the small cap index is up over 16% year to date, and that's a month and a half you've had a 16% return. Now, some of that has to do with just the fact that small and mid caps so much underperformed last year the large cap names. And as we were talking at the end of the year, we were talking about the switch to value and that small and mid would outperform just on a reversion to the mean because your large cap growth had such outperformance last year. And as confidence grew about a reopening in 2021, that's what has been the catalyst that has allowed these small and mid cap companies to really take off this year and see markets moving higher. Now, this week on Tuesday, we did get our PPI, or on Wednesday, on Tuesday, I apologize, we got our PPI number, which is the Producer Price Index, which that is really dealing with inflation. And the number came in much hotter than was expected in the markets. And what that means in our jargon is when it comes in hotter, it comes in much higher than was expected. And so what you've seen happen because of that is you've seen a little bit of selling pressure in the stock market as there is fears of inflation coming, and inflation coming in higher than expected. Now, what happens with that, and what you saw yesterday, the NASDAQ was down over 1%, but the Dow was actually positive for the day. The reason being is when you have fears of inflation or higher inflation, these companies that are your tech sectors or your large growth companies that have really high PE multiples, well, those multiples get pressure because you're going to have to start paying more and more for debt. As rates rise and inflation rise, your cost of capital goes up, and it makes it harder for you to get into those earnings. So you see the selling pressure there to get out of those names, to move into more names that are more cyclically oriented, that actually benefit from higher inflation and higher inflationary times. And those are your more cyclical names. The other thing to think about as we're sitting here today with a little bit of market sell-off is where do markets go from here? I was on the phone with a client this morning who said, I'm really worried. I think markets are going to go really down from here. I just don't see what's happening. Well, there's a couple of things to talk about. Are we poised for a correction or a little bit of a pullback? Absolutely. We've been off to a really strong start. We might be a little bit ahead of our skis right now. And pullbacks are natural and good and healthy for the market, and something that we like to see. So we are still off to a really strong start to the year. Don't be surprised if you see a little bit of pullback off of this inflationary news. But all the while the central bank policy is the way that it is, monetary policy the way it is, and stimulus the way it is, with more stimulus potentially down the road coming, as long as we continue to print money and put money into the systems, the markets have one way to go, and that's up from here. So as long as money supply is continuing to flow into our system, money has to go somewhere. Money is chasing a return. And right now, the only place still to get a good return on your dollar is the stock market. So don't let a short-term correction or pullback keep you from being long and staying long. Now is the time to get long and stay long, and look at an opportunity on a pullback or a day where it's down just a little bit as an opportunity to get in at a lower entry point, and you're buying the market on sale. So as always, if you have questions about what's going on with your individual portfolio or in ways that we can help you, feel free to reach out to us. You can call us at 904 888-346-3460. Or as always, check us out online at www.riverplacecapital.com. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week. Talk to you next week.